Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you have been here before, you do know that this is my regular series, my once-a-week filming of a tarot and oracle spread that helps me explore ideas related to living an intentional life. And this week, I'd like to start with asking you if it's safe. If you're driving, don't do it. But if it's safe, close your eyes for a moment. Are they closed? Okay, now, I'd like you to imagine soul, spirit, what you imagine as the eternal nature that you are. Do you have some kind of an image or some kind of a perception in mind? What does it look like? Does it look like you? Does it have your features, your general body outline? Perhaps does it look like you when you were younger? Or maybe the way you imagine yourself when you're older? Is it radiant? Is it glowing? Is it shining with the light of the eternal? What is it doing? Is it surrounding your body? Is it hovering above you, somehow connected to you? Is it somehow seated in an eternal lotus position? I ask this because, and you can open your eyes now if you like, and I'd like to know what you imagined yourself, your eternal self, as being like in the comments below. Let me know what you first imagined. I remember my mother, she wasn't speaking too seriously. I think it was a half-true joke, saying that she was afraid that heaven was going to be boring. She imagined herself as being part of a chorus of angels singing and praising God for all eternity. And I think she imagined it somehow as being like being stuck inside of a church in the choir for all of eternity. And she imagined that as being pretty boring. And I can see that, because that's a very human interpretation of what that idea symbolizes. Now, she was taking that interpretation of singing the praises of God for all eternity and fitting it into her human construct of doing that in church with a choir. I can understand that, and that would certainly be boring. Wouldn't that be boring to you? No matter how diverse the songs would be, no matter how ecstatic the songs might be, I think sitting inside of a church and singing for the rest of millions and millions of years would be rather irritatingly boring. But that's not what it means. The meaning of singing the praises of God for eternity includes what we are doing now. Right now, at this moment, you are singing the praises of God, whatever that is to you. Be it Brahman, Allah, Divine Mother, Gaia, Great Mother, Great Father, Universal Consciousness. The experience that we have as unified entities within the one, of the one, divine, eternal consciousness, is a relationship of singing the praises of each other. Because the divine is also singing the praises of all this stuff that we are creating as well. As at the same time, we are at this moment singing the praises of the divine. So this week's spread is calling us to reflect on who we are as spirit and living intentional lives. And so I've got a tarot spread and oracle spread all laid out. Let me give you a quick peek at the spread. Gorgeous spread, isn't it? If this is the first time you've seen it, I suggest you check out the previous 2 videos, in which I use the same cards and the same layout, because these cards read beautifully together in a very specific kind of way. They're giving much more alchemical, spiritual, maybe esoteric-ish kinds of readings, which is wonderful, I think, for this time of year. And also it's wonderful to have that kind of reading as part of our exploration of the intentional life. So we've got the layout. And again, if this is your first time seeing it, let me give you a quick overview. The 5 cards in the center are a kind of alchemical spread. Now, instead of just the 4 common elements of fire, water, air, and earth, we've got a 5th element of ether, or for spirit, in the center, surrounded by the other 4 elements. And they're the oracle cards giving us the central theme of this week's spread. And around those oracle cards, there are inquiry cards, cards with questions, 4 of them around the central spread. And each one of those questions is answered by 2 tarot cards, one from 2 different decks. And if you're curious about the decks, who created them, as usual, there's going to be a short clip at the end of the video that gives you that information. And below the video, in the description box, there will be links for you to go get most of these decks, or check out most of these decks if you're interested. Unfortunately, one of these decks is and has been out of print for many, many, many years. But the others are all still available. So go check them out. And again, if you don't know this, I don't get any money if you go purchase at those sites. I'm just offering them to you for your convenience. Okay, so friends, we looked at the spread. Beautiful spread. Let's take a look at the central oracle cards and their message first. You just saw the central oracle cards for this overall spread. The cards that give us the theme, the thesis for this week's spread. And the central card, the card holding the space for ether or spirit, was chromium. Above chromium, you saw the card in the fireplace was zinc. The card below chromium in the water space was Cyborgium. Cyborgium, not a common element. Actually, not a naturally found element. Now, to the left of chromium, in the air spot, we have titanium. And then to the right of chromium, in the earth spot, we had cesium. So let's take a look at these cards and how they interact with each other. And we'll start with ether in the center, because that's where we begin. We begin with spirit. We begin with the eternal nature of us. And this card in this space reminds us that while sometimes I think we imagine the non-physicalness of ourselves as being somehow rather bland, filled with light perhaps, but I think we see that as that eternal nature of ourselves as not being very fun, not being very creative, not being playful, but being very holy, very above it all. And I think that nothing could be further from the truth. An eternal nature that was not playful and did not evolve and did not change, would not create this physical universe that we are experiencing now. There's a playfulness, there's a fun, joyful, experimental aspect of spirit that I think we all want to remember. And that's what this chromium card is here to remind us of. Chromium, for ether, is robust, and it's colorful, and it's a little bit splashy. And our spirit also has that as part of its nature. Now, it's robust, of course, because spirit is eternal and is not going to get sick and die. Spirit is, of course, robust, but robust in the sense of also colorfully robust, diversely robust, and splashy, like splashes of color, splashes of energy. Have you ever seen pictures or videos of celebrations of Holi in India, where they throw the colored powder? Yeah, it's a kind of splashy festival. There's colors just flying through the air. And that's part of what spirit is. Color and lights flying through space, or non-space. Radiating and sparkling, glowing and moving. It's the card of the source of our fiery passion. Because our passion is the fire element. Our creativity is the fire element. And it sprouts forth from spirit. And fire would not sprout forth from something that is placid, stable, unmoving, boring, without change, without energy. Now, our fiery, passionate selves in these physical bodies are expressions of spirit. They're not as opposed to spirit, they are expressions of spirit. And they're one step lower, you might even think, than spirit. Now, spirit is more energetic than fire, has more potential power than fire, has more passion, more energy than fire. And so it is the source of our passion. Our passion is contained within spirit. Chromium also reminds us that it has the ability to awaken others, which spirit also does. And we awaken others not by sitting in lotus position, without any energy, without any joy, without any exuberance, but finding calm, finding contentment, which are wonderful things. Don't get me wrong. Calm and contentment are wonderful things. But spirit is so much more than that. And it's that boisterous energy of spirit that awakens others. We can awaken others by our presence, yes. But presence, mindfulness, is not stuck. It's not fixed. It's not rigid. Mindfulness radiates, glows with love and joy and well-being and awareness. It is incalculable. My mouth is frozen. Incalculable energy, potential energy. It is infinite potential energy. That's who we are. And it's that part of us, that usness, which can awaken others if we allow it to radiate, to shine, to be visible. It brings them to the heights of being themselves. It helps to influence their awakening, their elevation, their self-elevation, by being playful, by being bright, exuberant, creative. And that's who we are as eternal selves. And above, well, physically, placed above the spirit card, not because there's a hierarchy, but just because physical space needs physical placement. And this placement was above the ether card, was zinc for fire. Fire of our passions and our creativity. Zinc reflects the light of spirit. So, perfect card for this area. And what do we see? We see a figure kind of in a circus pose, a Cirque du Soleil or Chinese circus pose, walking on the hands with the legs arched over their heads. And this is again the card that reflects the light of spirit. It's the boundary between the energetic outside and the transformative healing darkness within. Now remember, spirit encompasses all of that, because all of this is within spirit, is within the eternalness of ourselves. But the fire is the boundary which begins the sense of duality, of inside and outside. The outside of busyness and energy, energetic movement and distraction, and the inside darkness, not darkness of absence of light, but darkness of calm, shall we say. The darkness of the earth. And we haven't gotten to the earth yet, but the darkness of the interior. The generative darkness. The healing darkness. The darkness within that transforms. And zinc is that. It's that first element which gives shape, which gives duality so that we can exist in these physical bodies in this physical universe. It's energetic, and it protects the internal from the external. It shields, but it also reflects. It shields the inside, and it reflects the light of spirit outwardly and inwardly in very different ways. Inwardly, not so much as light and robustness, but in transformation, evolution, development, like a seed growing in the soil. The external light is the more colorful, vibrant light of the fire, to interact with other physical beings and other physical elements in this physical universe. So, spirit shines through us with fire into the world. And then below the chromium, we have this odd element called Cyborgium. Cyborgium. Very odd name. It comes from Cyborg. Cyborg was the name of I believe the person who first created this element in the laboratory. It's one of those laboratory created elements that we have not found in nature, at least so far. It might be out there in the universe, but we have not found it here on Earth. But we have created it. We've created very, very small elements. Amounts of it, quantities of it. We've created a few atoms of it. But it has been created. And in the water position, what is Cyborgium telling us about? It's telling us that it is the secret keeper. Because the water is representative of two parts of us. It's our emotions, which you could think of as the surface of the water. Now, the ripples, the waves at the surface of the water are our emotions. And below the surface, we have our unconscious, our intuition, the darkness within, which is protected by the fire of zinc. Below we have the darkness of Cyborgium, which is our secret keeper. And there at the surface, at the meeting point between fire and the depths, is where we find our emotions and our emotional expression. But Cyborgium, again, is the secret keeper. It communicates messages that were only really intended for us. Messages from us, from the fullness of us, from the eternal beings that we are, to the more temporal uses, to the more temporal beings that are manifest here in these bodies. Now, we want to have a method of communication from the fullness of us that cannot be comprehended by these brains that we have, in these more temporal minds, these more temporal formed consciousnesses, which are also controlled or expressed within a smaller ego. Now, the ego mind, in particular, cannot hold the information and knowledge and wisdom of the eternalness of us. So there's a repository of the unconscious, which again does not hold the fullness of information, of wisdom that we are as eternal beings, but can translate, can hold messages for us. And those messages can only be deciphered by us. They are secret messages. They are encrypted messages. They are written in code for us, by us, to us. And if we try to express them to others, they sound like gibberish. And sometimes when ego gets a hold of them, it sounds like gibberish, and ego gets nervous and afraid of what it's receiving. Have you ever had that kind of experience where you've received information or a thought or a feeling from within that is so confusing and unsettling that you start getting worried that there is darkness and madness within? Darkness not of generation, but the darkness of fear, the darkness of separation, the darkness of without spirit. And honestly, I don't think that kind of darkness actually exists. However, we imagine it down there. And we get afraid of our subconscious minds. Many of us are very fearful of our subconscious minds and their contents because they are encrypted messages to us. And we do have the power to decipher them if we allow ourselves to open to them safely, after having learned how to open to them. We can decipher them for ourselves. And sometimes we need some help to be able to do that. And there are many sources of help for doing that. But that's what Cyborgium is here to remind us of. That within we have the secrets of our eternal selves written within in messages. Secrets, not being kept from us, but available to us when we are ready to receive them. Which is how I see, let's move just briefly into tarot, which is how I see the High Priestess card in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Not as a gatekeeper, not as the gatekeeper of you stay out, you're not allowed back here to see all this cool stuff that's hidden behind the curtain. Not in that sense. But the gatekeeper of checking, are you ready? And if we're not ready, the high priestess is not going to let us see the information, because the high priestess knows that if we're not ready, it's just going to freak us out or confuse us or make us, or we will deliberately, or we will misunderstand or misconstrue and fly off in directions that will be more than unhelpful. But when we are ready, the high priestess is more than willing to guide us behind the curtain, to receive the messages, because they are our messages. They aren't someone else's messages that are hidden away. They're our messages that we want to become ready to receive. Because the fullness of self wants to communicate with us and is communicating with us every moment of every day. Now, we move from water into air. And have you noticed that when you put fire to water, we get steam. We get stuff to fill the air. And so, in the way I imagine the elements, fire flows and water flow to air. Air is the element of mind and communication. Yeah, it's also the breath of life. So we had the first division with fire giving us duality. Then we had water coming in to fill one side of that duality, or to hold space within. And then at the meeting of the two springs forth mind, air, and our ability to communicate. Yeah, breath is, speaking is air. We speak, we communicate most easily with air and sound waves through air. No, no sound waves. So what do we have for air? We have titanium. Very interesting choice for air, because titanium is a very strong element, not so flexible and able to move in and out of stuff. But we get titanium for air. And what do we see? We see a very Atlas-looking, strong, masked male body holding up perhaps a kind of globe-like orb. And in this place of air, titanium is the uncomplaining workhorse, which is what mind can be, which is what our thoughts can be. Unfortunately, they often aren't. Unfortunately, our thoughts are often shifted into controlling, criticizing, judging, fearful things. And that's what happens when ego has mistaken its correct place. When ego believes it is separate and has to protect, control, and manipulate all of its experiences and the world around it. In this topsy-turvy place, ego creates thoughts that are not the uncomplaining workhorse for us. It becomes the harsh dictator. However, when ego is in its rightful place within the fullness of spirit, and realizes that it is the servant of spirit, the safe servant of spirit, the part of spirit that is cared for and is loved and is safe. When ego knows that it is safe and it is whole and it doesn't have to take on the burdens of the entire universe, then it can do its function properly as the uncomplaining workhorse, figuring things out for us, mapping out courses, dissecting things, because this is a world of things and of elements and figuring things out and putting things together and analyzing and critiquing and evaluating. All of those wonderful things that mind can do, it can do as titanium, uncomplaining, loyal, a loyal soldier for us. Not the soldier in attack, but the loyal soldier of being ready to do our bidding, to do the bidding of spirit, of the fullness of self. It's the element that enhances and lifts and protects us. From what? From other egos, perhaps, that might be going off in fear, in anger, in self-protection mode. Now, we do want to have ego serving its rightful role to protect us from things that do happen around us, because we want something that can do the thought processes that are required of this physical universe, within this physical universe, in concert with other egos. Because it's not only our spirits combined together, co-creating this universe, it's also a whole bunch of different egos working together when they're working properly, or sometimes becoming very reactive and starting to fight against each other. And when one or more egos starts going off, we want to have a soldier ego here that will keep our borders safe, because there are borders within this physical universe. It's the card of the path cutter. The path cutter who, with no desire for self-aggrandizement, for pats on backs, for being praised, but will cut the path for us and for others. Now lead the way. Lead the way as the servant leader. Bringing higher accomplishments for us and for those around us. Not to get praise, not to get the prizes, not to get the laurels, but as a servant of us and of others. That kind of a path cutter. Now, our mind can do all of that for us and for those around us, if it is in correct relationship with spirit. And there will be times, always, when it will shift. It will get in not correct, not balanced relationship with spirit and start feeling like it's alone again. And it has to protect us from the frightening everything around us. It has to keep us safe, so it jumps into the past and it jumps into the future and pays no attention to what's happening right here, right now. But in right relationship, our minds can be titanium. They can cut the path for us and for those around us. Protect us a little bit when we need the protection, not in fear, but just for stability, for having clear, porous, but safe boundaries. And then we move from mind into the most dual earth, the most physical, the most concrete earth. And for the earth card, we have cesium. Now, cesium is the card of duality, which makes sense being the earth card. It is the most dualistic element of the five. It's the most I am here, I am not there element. Air can spread all over the place. On this earth, there is nowhere that air does not exist. except for maybe some, okay, are you going to say vacuum? Okay, but there are almost no naturally occurring vacuums on this earth, in this atmosphere. Air is everywhere. Water goes everywhere. Fire is everywhere because in the center of every atom is fire in a sense. So Earth is the element which has the most duality. So cesium is a perfect representative for that. It's duality, but duality of both upliftment and pain. Upliftment. Being uplifted and being in pain. Being soft as silk and crushingly oppressive. It's the card of full spectrums, but full spectrums in duality. It can be precise. It can, when treated well, it can run like clockwork. Now, all of this physical stuff can run like clockwork if treated well, or it can become explosive. So, what do we do with this card, with this reminder of the duality of our physical experience? Well, it reminds us that this physical material being that we are and the matter that we live within requires, or doesn't require, no, it doesn't require. Things can explode. It's okay if things explode. But if we don't want them to explode, we want to focus our attention properly. We want to bathe this matter in the light of love, joy, hope. And if we're in that space, then everything works like clockwork. Matter is like silk, and we're in that uplifting experience of the physical life in this physical universe. Then, on the other hand, when ego gets into the wrong position, starts controlling, starts manipulating, starts defending and attacking, then things start to become explosive. Then we get into that painful part of our existence. It becomes crushing. And it depends on how we are, what kind of energy we are infusing into the material. Are we infusing love, joy, hope, satisfaction, comfort? Or are we infusing fear, anger, mistrust, revenge, criticism, defensiveness? Matter is going to react to the energy we infuse it with. And that's what this cesium card is reminding us of. This matter can be awe-inspiring success, or it can be dread. It can be the cold dread of chaos. Not fun chaos, but the chaos of fear and destruction. And it all depends on how the energy is flowing into the matter. And we have the ability to direct the energy that we are flowing into the material. And the energy comes from the spirit of chromium. Playful, joyful. That's how we are. And we enter the world and we begin to form dualities. The interior, the exterior. The interior is full of these messages that we want to discover and we want to learn from. And sometimes we do, oftentimes we don't. And from that springs the mind. The mind, which here we really start to get that beginnings of duality, of the relationship between mind and spirit, right relationship, the workhorse soldier doing our bidding, or the fearful tyrant. And if it's the fearful tyrant we are expressing, then matter is going to react to that energy that we are placing out there. However, if mind is that loyal, trusting, trusted, serving soldier for us, matter is going to reflect that. And we're going to have that enthusiasm for interacting with matter. Being matter, interacting with matter. How are you experiencing matter right now? Can you feel how your experience with matter is also a reflection of your emotional state? Can you see how our emotional state infuses our experience of the world? Through mind, through perception of the matter. And we have the possibility to direct the fullness of our chromium into matter. And that's what living an intentional life is. It's directing all of that playful, robust, colorful, splashy energy into the world of matter. And if we are able to do that, then we are living an intentional life. And sometimes we don't. And a lot of times we don't, and that's okay. We didn't come here for what we in human minds consider to be a perfect life, because that perfect life becomes stagnant. We came here to experience diversity. We came here to experience duality, highs and lows. So that it's okay when we are in that low portion of the trough of the wave. But we don't have to stay there. And there are ways to get out. There are ways to get out. And when we are out, then we are open to the powerful force of intention, the current of intention carrying us forward to the things that we have wanted for ourselves, the relationships, the places to live, the experiences, the creative projects, the work that we love to do and that inspires us and builds the flames that are zinc for us. So friends, my office heater has turned off. So let me go turn it on, and then we'll take a look at the first question of the four. While you were looking at the first question and the two tarot cards in response to that question, I got up and I turned on the heater. Hopefully it will kick in just a moment. So the first question is, what needs to be balanced? What needs to be balanced? We got two cards answering this question, and a very interesting pairing. Yeah? One side we had the Six of Swords, and on the other side we had the Queen of Wands. So air and fire, which can be complementary in some ways, and here I think indicate a very good balance. Things for us to balance. And I would like to start with the Queen of Wands first, because I like starting with fire. I am a fire element. I'm a Leo, so I'm fixed fire and I like fire. So let's start with the Queen of Wands. We see in this card a queen holding her staff. Beautiful queen, crowned. And she's the card of courage. She's the card of confidence. And she's the card of independence. The Queen of Swords is also a card of independence as well, but a different kind of independence. The Queen of Swords is mental independence, independent thought. The Queen of Wands is independent self. She creates and she does what she wants. So that's on one side, that is a perfect thing. Yeah, we want to be that independent, creative, courageous being. She's the self-assured queen. She knows who she is, and she knows her worthiness being here in this world. She's the card of determination. She's going to get things done. And she will help other people do things as well. She is the passionate mentor. She is the role model and the one to help bring fire to others around her as well. Because the queens are also sharers and mentors of others. Now she's got the power of her suit, this one fire, and she shares that with others. She helps to light the confidence and the courage and the independence of others as well. And she's a little bit down to earth because she's the card of doing things, of creating things, of shaping and molding and making new of this material substance in the world. So she does have a little bit of a down-to-earth part to her characteristics. So we've got this brave queen, self-assured, sharing her fire, and down-to-earth, boldly moving forward to create. And on the other side, we have a card of the Six of Swords. We have 5 swords stuck in a boat. One sword, I think, is kind of being used as an oar. Or have you ever seen the boats in the canals of Venice? Yeah, those gondoliers. The gondoliers use a pole to move the gondola through the canals. And that's kind of what the one large sword looks like it's being used as. We don't see any people in the card, but it's outside, it's stuck in the water, and it's in a position that a gondolier might use it as. And so we have a boat moving forward with the swords. So the Six of Swords is the card of transitions from one thing to another. Change, rites of passage. It's the card of leaving behind the choppy waters and moving into brighter, calmer, clearer waters ahead. It's a card of journey and pilgrimage. Moving towards the holy spot, moving towards the future. And it's a card a little bit of releasing baggage. Yeah. The card before the Six of Swords was the Five of Swords. And the Five of Swords is a card of battle, of winning to mental competition and winning at all costs and mental bloodshed. The Six is moving away from that. Okay, so I've done battle, now I'm moving away from the battle into clearer waters. So how do we get the balance between these two cards? What do we want to balance? We want to balance our fixed fire, in a sense. Yeah, our courage, our confidence, and our independence, self-assuredness to do and be who we are right now, right here. And also our ability and willingness to let it go and move on. Because sometimes that fire suit can be a little bit stubborn. That self-assured determination can become stubbornness if it goes out of balance. So to balance that with moving on, letting things go, letting baggage go, letting old thoughts pass into the past, makes a very nice balance. So what do we want to balance? as we are expressing here in these bodies, we want to balance the fire of our eternal beings, the chromium, our individuality, our courage, as well as our ability to let it go and move on. Does that make sense? Can you see the balance between those two? So that's the first thing to remember as we are manifest in these bodies, that we want to balance our powerful fire and a mutable mind, a mind able to move forward and let go and change and transform and go through the rites of passage to become something else, to become new. So I'm secure in who I am, and I'm willing to change and move forward and become something new. That's a wonderful balance. Let's take a look at the second question. The second question, after discovering how we find our balance, like being on a boat, you need to have your balance, right? To what am I committed to? And here we have two cards. One of them, the Hermit. One of them, the Four of Cups. And let's start with the Four of Cups. In the card from this deck, from the Pagan Otherworlds deck, we see three cups kind of floating in the air. Well, actually, all four cups are floating in the air, but three are in a line up above, and one is just a little bit below, but also floating in the air. Now, in a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, what we usually see is that there are three cups in front of a person seated on the ground with a tree to their back. So they're in a stable position. They're looking at the three cups, looking a little bit bored, maybe a little dissatisfied. And there's another cup off to the side being handed to them from spirit, apparently. A disembodied hand is holding a goblet, but the person seated does not see that. They're just looking at the three cups in front of them. So we don't get that image here, but we do get the same idea. Yeah, the Four of Cups is turning attention inward, away from the external distractions. So, looking within. And not to be confused with the Four of Swords, which can be a mental stability. Now, kind of like a meditation, calming the mind. And can also be healing and other things, but the Four of Swords can also be a calming of the mind. Here we have a calming of the emotions, a stability of emotions, looking within the water. The Four of Swords is looking within the air, the mind. This is the Four of Cups, looking within the water. Now within the unconscious perhaps, looking within our emotions, inspecting our emotions and where we are in the world. And that's one thing we are committed to in these bodies, in this physical universe, is to be introspective, to look within. For two reasons. One is because it's that emotional place, that emotional level, that emotional energy that we have, which indicates how open we are or how closed off we are to the powerful flow of intention. Now, our emotional state indicates how much access we have to the powerful current of intention. And one thing that we are committed to in these bodies, in this physical universe, is to keep tabs on our emotions, to turn within and reflect on our emotional state, and do what we want, what we can do to raise our emotions, to open ourselves up, to flow with intention. It's the card of introspection, the card of reflection and contemplation of ourselves, our emotional state, which is again like the surface of the water, the ripples or the waves of the water. And it's also to look within the water. Remember, inside of the water, there are messages, secret messages meant only for us, which are placed there by the fullness of our eternal selves. So that's another thing that we're committed to inspect within, to find within, which leads us right to the Hermit card, which is a wonderful progression. The Hermit is soul searching. Introspection, again, reminding us of introspection. Being alone. We are committed to keeping time for our aloneness. We are committed to creating space for introspection. And that's part of the Hermit, going off into the wilderness, whether that wilderness is a forest, or that wilderness is an island, or that wilderness is our bedrooms or meditation rooms. Now, finding alone time. Being alone for inner guidance, because again, there is information within us to guide us forward. There's wisdom that we hold within, and we are committed to discovering that wisdom from within the waters of our unconscious. It's also the card of erudition. It's the card of learning, scholarship, and mentorship. Erudition. So we look within, in the darkness, in the waters of the interior. But we also look out for knowledge and wisdom that is transcribed and in nature, transcribed in books, transcribed in people that we see. So we also go out to study. The Hermit marks off space for introspection, but also looks out to discover information from the outside. And we're committed to both. We're committed to introspection and erudition, because we grow and develop with that kind of balanced searching and discovering knowledge, wisdom. And that's what we're committed to here in these physical bodies. Now, the eternalness of self has all access to all of that. But here, as manifested eternal beings, we're committed to that discovery of the interior, and as that interior is reflected in the exterior. Because, remember, our experience of the world is a reflection of our interiors. So, as we discover things on the outside, we realize that those things we're discovering are reflections of what we have within, or who we are within. Let's look at the third question. The third question is, what is my heart saying? Again, a perfect flow. Yeah, first we found balance. Then we discovered that we are committed to introspection. And as we introspect, we look at the heart. So what is our heart saying? And here we have two interesting responses. They're very similar. One is a new moon card from the Pagan Otherworlds deck, Now, there are moon phase cards within the pagan otherworlds, and I use them. So we have the new moon card, and on the right we have the Page of Cups. And believe it or not, they bear similar messages. But let's start with the new moon. New moons. What are new moons? What do they mean to us as humans in this physical universe, on this Earth planet, with the moon revolving around us? The new moon is the card, or is the moon, I should say, is the moon of cleansing, and healing. Yeah, it's both the end and beginning of a cycle. So we heal from the cycle that came before, and we cleanse space for the new to begin to flourish. It's the card of new beginnings, not the moon of new beginnings. It's the moon of the creative spirit. Like the seed germinating within the earth, the new moon holds space for the new to germinate. It's not filled with light yet. It's the womb. The moon expressing the womb of germinating newness. It's the card of the fresh course of manifestation, of expansion and evolution. Now we're beginning the return of the light. Now we have the solar cycle where the sun gets very dark in the northern, in both hemispheres, gets very dark at one of the solstices, and then we get the return of the light. That happens in annual cycle for the sun, but the moon happens on a monthly cycle, right? A little shorter than a monthly cycle. So it's the beginning of the new. It's visualization and self-reflection. Again, turning sight outward, visualization, and self-reflection. An echo back to the Hermit and the Four of Cups. So the new moon is again, card of new beginnings, visualization, introspection, and clearing out space for the new to grow. Healing the wounds of the past for the new evolution to take place. And then right beside that card, we have the Page of Cups. The pages, the fresh, new, not quite well versed in their suit, but the explorer, well, not even the explorer yet, but the first inquisitor, figuring out, enjoying the beginnings, the new mind of their suit. So the Page of Cups is the creative opportunities card. It's the page of creative opportunities. He's the card of curiosity, possibility, the dreamer, the poetic one. Do you see how that balances or expresses from the idea of the new moon? And you'll notice that the new moon is an empty circle, which is kind of like that cup that the page is holding. And the page looks within that cup to see the opportunities, to discover their dreams, to find intuitive, creative ideas. Because the Page of Cups is also the cup of intuitive messages, looking within the water to get understanding. Just as we, in the new moon, introspect and visualize. The Page of Cups is the being, the sensitive being, the one that is fine-tuned to feel what's going on around them. So we have this wonderful dance of the new moon and the page, newness, fresh creativity. And that's what our hearts are saying. Our hearts are saying, let's heal. Let's create space for the new to grow. Let's dream. Let's see possibilities. Let's write poetry, sing songs. Let's look within and learn with our intuition the messages that have been placed within us or been left within us and are continually being added to by the fullness of Spirit. That's what our hearts are saying to us. Get ready to grow. Get ready to evolve. And do it beautifully, creatively, artistically, poetically. Let's take a look at that last fourth question. The fourth question flows beautifully from the other three. And I'm amazed at how well these inquiry cards work for me and how beautifully the questions flow from one to the other almost always. And this time is no exception. We started with what needs to be balanced. Yeah, we got this duality that we want to balance. And from that we get, what am I committed to? When I found my balance, what am I committed to? And when I got my commitment, what is my heart saying? And from my heart, the last question is, where is my joy? And joy flows from the heart. And this question, where is my joy, flows from what is my heart saying? And we have two beautiful cards here to answer. We have the Knight of Cups, another water card. There are a lot of water cards here in this spread. And we have the Seven of Wands, another fire card. And let's start with the Knight of Cups, because we just came from the Page of Cups, yeah? The Page of Cups is the new one, the curious one, the first discovery one. And here we are with the Knight, the real discoverer, the one who goes out to discover, rides out on their horse to discover. What? Creativity. And my joy is in my creativity. Romance. My joy is in romance. This is the card of romance. Charm and the affable knight. My joy is in being able to relate with other people, being able to charm other people. Not manipulatively, but because it's joyful to be charming and to express charm and to express affability. The Knight of Cups is also the card of beauty, and joy is in beauty and imagination. Beauty and imagination is total Knight of Cups energy. And that's where we find a lot of our joy, actively being our active imagination, our active creation of beauty and discovery of beauty. And on the right behind him, we have the Seven of Wands. And it's nicely placed behind him because the Seven of Wands is not something he's moving towards, but something that he or she, the knight being male, female, non-binary, whatever, yeah, the knight carries with them the Seven of Wands, which is a card of challenge and protection. Let me say that again. The challenge to our positions. Now, The Seven of Wands comes from the Six of Wands. The Six of Wands is the card of victory and being the one receiving accolades, the laurel wreath of the victor, the victory march of the conqueror. Now the sixth is the one being recognized for victory. So the next step after being recognized is remembering that often when we do have a victory, there are challenges to our victories. In sports, the victor doesn't stay a victor to the end without any challenges. So, the Seven of Wands is challenge to our position, the position that we have gained. It's the card that cultivates from the challenges. Yeah? The challenges that help us to achieve an even stronger position. Because one victory, if that were the end of it, we wouldn't grow any farther. But the challenges to our victories help us to grow even more. Does that make sense to you? That if you were to just win first prize when you were 5 years old and that was it, you were the 5-year-old first prize winner till the end of your life, there would be very little development. However, it's okay, you're the 5-year-old first prize winner. Now, what are you going to do? Now we get challenged to accomplish more. So that's what this card is also representative of. Being challenged to accomplish more, to develop beyond our accomplishments. It's the card of protection and perseverance, yes. But if you'll notice in this card and in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, there's only one person in the card. There are 7 wands, but there's only one person shown. Yeah, we see that one person as being above the others. Yeah, that one person is holding their wand, and we imagine that there are other people below holding wands, challenging the one above. However, we only see one person. And so to me, that indicates that maybe there aren't other people below. Maybe those challenges to position, to accomplishment, are coming from within us. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, those challenges to our victories are internal struggles. And so, rather than taking the stick and beating down violently within and causing even more struggle, rather standing tall within and observing the other staffs poking up from below, the fearful or competitive or who do you think you are or self-criticizing staffs, not so much mental self-criticism, but the challenges to position coming up from within, to observe those. Because as we observe them calmly, they will settle. If we take our stick from above and start waging war within, we'll add energy to the sticks below, to the wands below coming to attack us, and the conflict will add energy to them. However, if we can stand our ground calmly and observe, those sticks rising from below will settle back down. And we can evolve. And we can reach a stronger position within as well. And that's what the knight is carrying forward with them. Yeah? The ability to look within and allow those challenges to position to arise and fall. without having to engage in an internal struggle. Who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? You're not good enough. All of those internal feelings, those fiery feelings from within, that express themselves as thought often, but are also fiery feelings from within. We can calm them with attention and move forward with intention, because it is that rider which carries us forward and allows us to develop more. Creativity, romance, charm, interconnection, co-creation. Co-creation is a charming process. It can be an affable process, a loving process of the Knight of Cups. So how did this spread move? What has this spread carried us from and to? Briefly, we've got our spirit as being this vibrant, bold, creative thing, which is not our spirit. We are, as eternal beings, vibrant, bold, robust, colorful, splashy beings, moving into the physical. First with the fire, which separates a little bit. But while it creates boundaries, it helps us maintain our energy and reflects our spirit reflects spirit into the world. And inside of that is the water of our unconscious, which holds our secret knowledge that is only for us. We might be able to translate it, but the knowledge is for us. The symbols are for us. The encryptions are for our understanding. And then from the meeting of those two, we have mind, which in right relationship with spirit is our workhorse, is our trailblazer, cuts a path, shows our direction. We can see clearly and move humbly forward. Not the humility of I'm a worm and no man, I'm not good enough, but the humility of I am here with all of you beings who are here, and we are moving together. That kind of humility. And I'm cutting the path for us. Not for me, not for my recognition, but for us. And that's what the mind can do. And when the mind is doing that, the earth can be sparkling, delightful, uplifting, smooth as satin, work like clockwork. Yeah? We move with the powerful flow of intention, and that's what that earth feels like when everything's working smoothly, when spirit is flowing fully through us. And so, what do we want to balance? We want to balance our fire and our minds, so that mind is able to move forward and let go, and fire keeps us stable and centered in our passion and radiates the light of our dynamic, vibrant spirit. And then we move into what we are committed to. And we're committed to learning us and learning where we are and what is around us. Introspection and erudition. So, and as we introspect, as we look within, we ask, what is my heart saying? And my heart is saying, clear space for new creation. Because that's what we're here to do. We came here to create, to evolve, to develop, to manifest, to experience. Clear space and dream and see. Create poetry. Whether that poetry is a car engine, or that poetry is a song, or that poetry is a relationship, or that poetry is a pot. Whatever that poetry, whatever your poetry is, what is your poetry? Our heart is saying, clear space for it and do it. Do it anew every moment of every day. And so, as we do that, what is my joy? Because it is our joy that fuels our fire. And our joy is our love. Our love moving out into the world with creativity, with romance, with charm, lovingly interacting with each other. And being able to observe the conflicts that sometimes occur within inside of us, hold our ground, allow that conflict to subside, knowing that that conflict, that when it does come up, is moving us to a higher ground, is moving us to stronger position as we move forward into beauty, into joy, into imagination. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. Let me know in the comments below. So friends, in just a moment, again, there will be a short clip about the decks that were used in this spread. One of them, again, is, I'm very sorry, out of print, the Hude's Tarot. The other are still available, to my knowledge. And hit the like button if you haven't already. If you have, thank you very much. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit the alarm bell so that you get notifications of when I upload videos. I do at least once a week. And also, just share this with somebody who you think might benefit from it. Let somebody know to come look at this. If you think that you got something from it, somebody else might as well. And comment below. I'd love to hear from you. How does your chromium, how does the eternal self of you express in this universe? Let me know. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.